Today we're jumping back to our 2021 NHL prediction series where I'm going to have a special guest join me to predict who will be this year's top performers. We'll jump into that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, today we're going to continue on our prediction series where we're going to take a look at some players and predict who will get more points than the other, who's going to be the top performers of the 2021 NHL season. Now, as I mentioned, of course, throughout this series, we're going to have a special guest join us today. We have Justin from Hands Down Hockey on the channel to make his predictions here and thoughts with me. So I gave him 3 pairs of players to take a look at and predict which player will outperform the other. And of course, as you probably know, if you're familiar with this channel, Justin's a pretty big Penguins fan, so I try to make this have a little bit of a Penguins feel to it. So let's jump into the first question, which is who will have more points between the Penguins' top 2 players, Sidney Crosby and Evgeni Malkin.
First off, I want to give a huge thank you for Mike for allowing me on the channel. I love stuff like this. It's always a ton of fun. And of course, you guys can check me out over at Hands Down Hockey. All right, let's look at the first pairing that Mike has given me. Sidney Crosby versus Evgeni Malkin. Which of these 2 players do I think will have the most points next season? Now, we have to remember it is a reduced schedule, 56 games. And if we look at last year as a guideline, Evgeni Malkin was a man possessed for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He led the team in scoring, well over a point per game. He was simply on a mission last season to really showcase that, hey, the season before, I dropped off a little bit. I'm bouncing back in a big way this year, and he really did. I'm expecting the exact same thing this year from Evgeni Malkin as well. Now, obviously, Pittsburgh have reacquired Kasperi Kapanen, so you have to think, okay, is Kapanen going to be playing with Crosby or is he going to be playing with Malkin? Personally, it's tough to say where he's going to go. However, I just have that sneaky suspicion that Kapanen is going to end up playing with Evgeni Malkin, only because Sidney Crosby, he seems to just cycle wingers like you wouldn't believe, and I just feel that Kapanen is going to have more chemistry with Malkin than Crosby. Could be completely wrong. But again, I really think Evgeni Malkin's going to have more points than Sidney Crosby next season. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but either way, I'm a Penguins fan, so hey, both these guys do well. That is fantastic with me. But my choice here would be Malkin, simply because of how he played this year.
So now, as you heard Justin say, he's going with Malkin. He feels Malkin will repeat what he did last year. Well, I'm going to take a different approach here and say Crosby is going to outperform Malkin this year, but I don't think it's going to be by a lot. I think they're both obviously really solid players. Crosby is due to kind of bounce back and kind of lead again. Obviously, he and Malkin have taken turns over the years being the top performer point-wise. Sometimes one's injured, one's not. Obviously, Crosby likely is going to have some new line mates this year. Obviously, there'll be some familiarity, but as Justin mentioned, Crosby does tend to go through a lot of different wingers, and they do end up changing the lines around quite a bit. But I think Crosby is going to bounce back and outperform Malkin this year, but I think both will be having stellar years, and the Penguins will once again be a threat in the new divisions that we're facing for the 2021 NHL season. Now, next up, I've asked him about some couple of young top players that are on the rise. We got Tampa Bay Lightning's Brayden and Carolina Hurricanes center Sebastian Aho.
Brayden Point versus Sebastian Aho. Whew. Point fell off a little bit this year, even though, the team went on to win the Stanley Cup, Tampa. But Brayden Point the year before, he surpassed the 90-point plateau for the first time in his career. He still had a strong season this year, yes, but even on an 82-game schedule, tough to say if he would have passed that 90-point plateau once again. Sebastian Aho, on the other hand, he just seems to rise right now, year over year. This year being his best on his career. I'm going to go with Sebastian Aho here, simply because I really think Carolina is going to make some serious noise this year, and they're a team that is simply on the rise. Aho is going to be my pick over Brayden Point, and at the same time, you can speculate on who these guys are going to be playing with. I'm sure the lines are basically going to be the same, but you just never know. It's hard to give 100% just not knowing how the line combos are going to go. But yeah, I'm going to take Sebastian Aho here.
Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach here. I'm going to go with Point outperforming Aho, but again, I think it will be close. Both are terrific young hockey players. Aho is a player who's continuously improving. I can see him playing a lot this year with Andrei Svechnikov, who's been another top young player for the Canes. It's only going to continue to get better. They're not even in their prime yet, and I do agree with what he said that they're a team on the rise, and they're probably going to be a team that's, you know, you're going to have to watch out for here yet again. I'm surprised in a way they didn't make a move with their goaltending situation through the offseason. But other than that, that's really my only question mark for them heading into the season. When it comes to Tampa, though, they're going to be without a guy like Nikita Kucherov for likely the entire season. So I see Brayden Point, his role is going to be taken on even bigger this year. And obviously last year he also started with a surgery, missed some time, had a hip problem that he had to have corrected, and I think that's kind of why he might have slowed a little bit. But as the season went on, he certainly got better, still played a big role in helping them win the Stanley Cup. And I don't think it's going to be by a lot, but I do see Point starting the year healthy, having a little bit of a fresh start this year, and outperforming Aho as we head into the 21 NHL season. Now, lastly here, I've set him up with a last question featuring Kasperi Kapanen, newly reacquired by the Pittsburgh Penguins, against Boston Bruins' newly signed RFA winger, Jake Debrusk.
Oh, Kasperi Kapanen, speak of the devil, right? Versus Jake Debrusk. Now, obviously, there have been some changes with the Boston Bruins, not necessarily going to entirely affect Jake Debrusk, but with the loss of Torrey Krug and now Zdeno Chara becoming a member of the Washington Capitals, you have to wonder how that's going to shake up the Boston Bruins moving forward. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to have to step up and fill those roles on the blue line, but for Jake Debrusk, he's a player that I think has yet to even reach his full potential, and over the next few years, I think he's just going to be better and better. Kasperi Kapanen, as I mentioned earlier, how ironic, he's either going to be playing with Sidney Crosby or Evgeni Malkin, and either way, you're playing with one of the best centers in the NHL today, so there really is no wrong way to utilize Kapanen if he's either with Crosby or Malkin. But if Malkin's having a year like this past season, which I'm thinking he will again this year, that's only going to rise Kapanen even more. So I'm going to end up choosing Kasperi Kapanen here over Jake Debrusk, simply because I think he's really going to solidify himself with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Never really had an opportunity before being shipped out. So I think he's going to be just absolutely on fire this year. I hope he is. And Jake Debrusk is definitely going to have a strong season once again, as always. So yeah, Kapanen would be my pick out of those ones. So again, Mike, thanks for letting me take part in this series. It's always fun stuff like this. I'm doing something similar over on my channel, Let's Play GM, and I'm giving pairings, and then you're choosing your player on the pairings as the general manager of a new expansion franchise. So all in good fun. And of course, I mentioned it before, Mike, always open for collabs. Hey, we live in the same city after all, right? So again, Mike, thank you so much for letting me join. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to Mike, Top Shelf Hockey. And of course, you can check me out as well, Hands Down Hockey on YouTube. Thanks, Mike. Cheers.
I'm going to have to agree with him on this one. I do think Kapanen will outperform Debrusk, mainly due to the fact that he's going to get a lot more top six opportunity. I can see a situation where Kapanen, I think he's going to start with Crosby. That seems to be everything that I've heard and seen so far. I think that's where he's going to start. Doesn't mean he's going to stay there long, though. As we know, they quite often juggle the lines. And as we've said before, Crosby does tend to cycle through a fair bit of wingers, but still, I think Kapanen will be a good fit in the top six. They certainly will hope that he is. They did pay a pretty penny to bring him back home after spending the last number of years with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he could also play with Malkin as well. They've also got some other strong wingers like Zucker and Guentzel. So, they're kind of somewhat interchangeable depending on the day. They can change things up and see where they go. But the Penguins will have a lethal top six, and I think Kapanen will give every opportunity to play in that role, and likely you're going to get a lot of points. When you're playing with guys like that, you're going to get points. The centers he's going to be playing with are extremely strong playmakers, so if he can hang with them and go to the net, he's going to get more goals. You're going to get more assists just by being involved with the play. When it comes to Jake Debrusk, no guarantee he plays top six. He could sometimes be on the third line, and sometimes he's been inconsistent. So I'm going to say that at this point, I'm picking Kapanen because of the opportunity. If I knew for sure Debrusk was going to be a solid top six winger all year long for the Bruins, I may go in that regard. But Kapanen's just playing with better players, and because of that, I do agree that he'll get more points. So again, thanks to Justin for coming on. Certainly appreciate it. Always fun to do these collaborations. Lots of fun to talk predictions as we're getting ready here for the 2021 NHL season. So of course, for all of you watching, I want to know what your thoughts and predictions are on here as well. Leave some comments and we can discuss further. If you haven't already done so, consider going to subscribe to Justin on Hands Down Hockey. I'll have a link to his channel in the pinned comment down below, so check that out if you're not already familiar and subscribed. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.